The first time my wife's cousin offered me $500,000 to disappear from her life, I honestly thought he had lost his mind. We were sitting alone in a quiet corner of an expensive downtown steakhouse after what I believed was an ordinary family dinner. He slid a thick white envelope across the table without looking me in the eye. Inside was a cashier's check for $50,000 and a typed contract promising the remaining $450,000 after my divorce was finalized. He calmly said, "Walk away from Emily without asking questions. Take the money, disappear, and never contact her again." His expression never changed, but something about his voice made my blood run cold. I stared at him for several seconds, waiting for him to laugh and admit it was some twisted joke. Instead, he folded his hands and patiently waited for my answer, as though we were negotiating the sale of the business. "Why would you pay me that much?" I finally asked. He smiled faintly before replying, "Because it's cheaper than letting the truth come out." Before I could ask another question, he stood, adjusted his suit jacket, and walked away, leaving the envelope behind. I should have chased him into the parking lot. Instead, I sat frozen, replaying those chilling words over and over until the restaurant lights began to dim. That night, I barely slept. Emily noticed my silence and assumed I was exhausted from work. She kissed my forehead, told me everything would get better soon, and fell asleep beside me within minutes. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering why her own cousin would spend $500,000 to destroy our marriage. We weren't wealthy. We lived comfortably, but we certainly weren't important enough for someone to throw away that kind of money. Every possible explanation sounded ridiculous, yet none of them explained the fear I had seen hidden behind his confident smile. The following morning, curiosity defeated common sense. I called the number printed on the contract. Her cousin answered immediately, almost as though he had been waiting beside the phone all night. Before I could speak, he simply asked, "Have you decided?" I shocked even myself by answering, "Yes." There was a long silence before he replied, "Good. Meet me tomorrow morning. Come alone." As soon as the call ended, guilt crashed over me. I had just agreed to abandon my marriage without even confronting my wife. But something deep inside kept whispering that this was never really about money. When we met again, he handed me a folder instead of another check. "Read this before you judge me," he said quietly. Inside were copies of old property records, faded photographs, hospital documents, and handwritten letters dating back almost 30 years. At first they seemed unrelated, but one photograph stopped me cold. It showed Emily as a little girl standing beside a woman I had never seen before. The woman looked almost identical to my wife, yet Emily had always told me her mother died shortly after giving birth. The date written on the back made that impossible. I demanded an explanation, but instead of answering, he leaned closer and lowered his voice. "Everything your wife believes about her childhood is a lie," he whispered. "If she learns the truth, she'll lose far more than you ever could." Before I could press him further, his phone rang. The color drained from his face as he answered. He listened silently for several seconds before standing so quickly his chair crashed backward onto the floor. "They're too late," he muttered. "Someone already knows." Without another word, he grabbed the folder, forgetting one folded document on the table as he rushed out the restaurant's back entrance. I unfolded the forgotten page with trembling hands. It wasn't another property record or family letter. It was a certified DNA report. My eyes raced across the names until my heart nearly stopped. Emily's name appeared at the top, followed by another name I recognized instantly, the man she had always believed was her uncle. According to the report, he wasn't her uncle at all. He was her biological father. Before I could even process the impossible revelation, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It contained only one sentence. "If you tell Emily what you found, neither of you will live long enough to spend that money." For several minutes, I sat motionless, staring at the anonymous message while my hands shook uncontrollably. Every instinct told me to call the police. But another part of me realized whoever sent that warning knew exactly where I was and what I had discovered. I slipped the DNA report into my jacket before leaving to the front entrance. As I reached my car, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street. The driver wore sunglasses despite the cloudy afternoon and watched me without moving. The moment I pulled away, The SUV followed. By the time I managed to lose it in heavy traffic, I knew this was no longer about marriage. It was about a family that had spent decades protecting a devastating secret. That evening I looked Emily in the eyes and asked simple questions about her childhood. She answered every one of them with complete confidence, repeating the same story she had believed since she was a little girl. According to her, her parents had loved each other deeply until her mother died from a sudden illness. She remembered birthdays, vacations, and bedtime stories, but every memory before the age of 6 felt strangely incomplete. When I carefully showed her the old photograph, her smile disappeared. "I've never seen this woman before," she whispered, even though the little girl standing beside the woman was unmistakably her. The next morning, Emily insisted on confronting the only person who could answer our questions. Her father. We drove to his lakeside home, but instead of welcoming us inside, he looked terrified. The moment he saw the photograph and DNA report, his shoulders slumped as though he had been carrying an unbearable weight for years. After several minutes of silence, he finally confessed. Emily's biological mother had never died. She had disappeared after uncovering a financial fraud involving several members of the family. To protect their fortune and reputation, they staged her death, falsified official records, and raised Emily believing another woman had been her mother all along. The cousin who offered me the money had been trying to keep that lie buried forever. Before he could reveal where Emily's real mother might be, the front windows exploded inward. Masked men stormed into the house shouting for everyone to stay down. One of them demanded the DNA report, while another searched every room. Instinct took over. Emily and I escaped through the kitchen door, while her father distracted the intruders. We fled into the nearby woods, hearing gunshots echo behind us. Hidden beneath the trees, Emily broke down in tears, realizing her entire identity had been built on lies. At that moment, I understood the $500,000 had never been payment for a divorce. It had been hush money to erase the only person capable of uncovering the truth. We contacted a retired investigative journalist, whose name appeared in one of the forgotten letters from the folder. After reviewing every document, he admitted he had investigated the family nearly 25 years earlier, but had been threatened into abandoning the story. He agreed to help us expose everything. Together we tracked down financial records, hidden bank transfers, witness statements, and forgotten court filings. Piece by piece, the carefully constructed illusion collapsed. The evidence proved millions of dollars had been stolen through forged inheritances, fake identities, and fraudulent property transfers. Emily's true mother had discovered the scheme and vanished before she could testify. The final breakthrough came from the cousin himself. Cornered by investigators and abandoned by the very relatives he had protected, he agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. He admitted he had offered me the money because he believed I would accept a divorce and leave without asking questions. He never imagined curiosity would lead me to the forgotten DNA report. Through his testimony, authorities located a remote cabin where Emily's biological mother had been living under a false identity for decades after escaping those who wanted her silenced. Their emotional reunion erased years of unanswered questions, but also confirmed how much had been stolen from both of them. Months later, the courtroom was packed as verdicts were read. Several family members received lengthy prison sentences for fraud, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and witness intimidation. Nearly every hidden asset was seized, and the fortune they protected for decades disappeared overnight. As for the promised $500,000, I never accepted a single dollar. The cashier's check remained untouched until it was entered into evidence during the trial. Walking out of the courthouse hand in hand with Emily and her reunited mother, I realized the greatest victory wasn't exposing conspiracy or watching the guilty fall. It was proving that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds a way back into the light. Looking back, the moment I said yes to that unbelievable offer wasn't the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of the darkest mystery our family had ever tried to hide.